Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Kirsten Takashima, and I serve as one of the co-vice presidents of the programming team here at PreMedCC. And I'm just very excited to introduce our wonderful guest speakers that we have today. We have UCSF medical students here, and all of them have been through kind of the pre-med track, and they're going to talk about their journeys from pre-med to where they are now, kind of insights into the application process, and pretty much any other questions that you have. And so you can put any questions that you have in the chat. And so we'll start off with introducing our guest speakers. I'll choose maybe like Gabriella, and then we can popcorn from there.
Hi everyone. We have two Gabbies today. So I'm Gabby at Mystery. So it's nice to see everyone here and hope to be of help. But yeah, so I actually grew up in Pomona and SoCal, and then I moved to a small city called Eastvale, kind of near Riverside. And I went to undergrad at UC Irvine, and I took two gap years. I also Oh yeah, I majored in biochem and molecular bio, and my favorite food is noodles, like any type of noodles, like ramen, pho, anything with noodles, you name it. But I'll popcorn to Robert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Gitos. Happy to be here. MS1 from UCSF. I guess some basic little backstory of me. I went to UC Irvine, born and raised in Downey, which is like 9 miles southeast of LA. Majored in biology, minored in medical humanities. And then I took two gap years, and one of my gap years was doing the post back here at UCSF. So um, UCSF, if you guys don't know now, it stands for You Can Stay Forever. So, um, unfortunately, I'm saying that cringy line, but I guess I'm part of the brand now. But a fun fact, I guess like I've actually broken both of my, or I fractured both of my elbows, not at the same time. All right, so I wasn't double casted, but I had two fractures, and both of them were because of baseball. I'll popcorn to Geo.
Hey everyone, um, this is Giovanni. Um, I go by Gio. I went to Cornell University, graduated with my major in human biology, health and society. Similar to Robert, also completed the UCSF postbac during one of my gap years. Um, One of my favorite things to do in the city is to go on walks around Golden Gate Park. And now popcorn to the other Gabby.
Hi everyone. I am Gabby MS1. I grew up in Berkeley, California, so from the Bay Area. I actually went to Minnesota for college, so I attended a small liberal arts college, McAllister College in St. Paul. I also took two gap years, and my major was biology with a biochem emphasis, and a minor in chemistry. And a fun fact. I'll hop on the food train and just choose anything Thai food. And then popcorn to Katya.
Hi everyone, my name is Katia. I'm originally from Sinaloa, Mexico, and I moved to the US when I was 15 years old to Chula Vista, which is in the South San Diego. I went to UCLA for undergrad. I majored in psychobiology, and I actually took like about 5 gap years. So more of like non-traditional path too. Um, one of my what's it? Let's see what I'm gonna say. Oh, I guess I'll just tell you guys that I'm like addicted to coffee and I love like coming up with new coffee recipes at home. And is there someone else? Let me
Well,
see.
the one person I'm going to embarrass is Lucia, who's part of our leadership team. She's been accepted to numerous medical schools, and UCSF is one of them. So she's still playing, she still hasn't decided where she's going to go. She's going to weigh her options, but so if you guys want Lucia there, you should recruit her, but anyway, to embarrass her.
Okay, well, building off of that, thank you guys for introducing yourselves and sharing a little bit about your background. From that context, feel free to ask any questions to the to the panelists. We already have some coming in, and we'll just start with those if that works for you, Kirsten. Perfect. Okay. So maybe you all can start by, I know most of you are MS1s, but sharing a little bit about overall, what was something in your pre-med journey that you think that like current pre-meds should focus on, or something of emphasis that you just want to start off with like a little bit of information about from your perspective now? Whether that's like MCAT, I know that's a broad question, MCAT or like post-bac, or whether that's like considering where to apply, the timeline of it all, gap years.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a kind of broad question. Um, but I feel like general advice that I think I did a decent job on that I would go back just like building my application in general is just I wouldn't necessarily think, say that all the things kind of like the stars align of all the activities that I've done to sort of be in the position that I am today. But I think you should have some sort of general theme within your application. When you read the application, you should be able to see that person right in front of you. If you want to serve the underserved, make sure that stuff is backed up in your activities. And I think that's just like overall general advice that just first comes to mind if you're going to say something and yeah, if you say something or write it in your application, make sure you back it up. And it's really nice to read a story of, your upbringing or maybe certain things that you're interested in and like you creating a leadership position from that or you actually doing work within those communities.
I can add. So, yeah, I guess like for me, um, I wasn't like initially pre-med as a undergrad, mostly because I didn't have like the confidence. I remember going to like the first, it was like this org fair at UCI, and I went up to like the pre-med one, and then like I heard all of the horror, like, oh my God, like 50% of students don't get in the first time. And I was like, if like half of the people don't get in the first time, like I'm for sure going to be one of the 50%. And it was just like a lack of confidence. But I think just like staying true to yourself and like going into undergrad and also like opportunities with an open mind, I think that really helped me a lot. And just like going for opportunities that you find interesting and find passion for, whatever it may be, it could be clinical related, it could be non-clinical. And I think like when you do pursue opportunities, like making sure that you are enjoying them and you have a lot of passion and it's like calling your name and also you're causing a lot of impact. If you feel like you're doing something and like dreading it, or like you feel like, if you're like a hospital volunteer and you're just sitting on the front desk not really doing anything, then maybe that's not a good thing to like invest your time in. Like if it is like something that you're not doing a lot of impact in, like make sure you find a way to have impact and find a way to um, help others and um, just like only doing things that you really enjoy. And from there, your story will carry a lot of weight because you're gonna have so much to talk about. So that's just some advice.
Yeah, I can go next. I think coming out of undergrad, I guess my freshman year was when COVID hit, so it was very difficult to kind of find a lot of um different clinical experiences to have. So in thinking about my gap year, I knew that I wanted to immerse myself more in a clinical setting. And I know as like a pre-med, with just, some college background, it can be very difficult to find different clinical experiences that you can be a part of. But I think the best thing that I did was just kind of attending panels like these, talking to faculty at my undergrad institution and figuring out like there are positions that you can find. So don't think that just because you don't have an MD behind your background or behind your name yet, that you can't find clinical experiences. During my gap year, I did a clinical research coordinator position, which kind of allowed me to do a little bit of research, but also interact with patients. I also did do the hospital volunteer type of thing. There are many positions, and you can find the one within the hospital that makes you feel like you're making the most impact. But would also second, don't just do something to do it. When you do get to talking about these experiences, especially if you go down the line of applying to medical school and you get interviews, like it will be really important that you're able to talk and make meaning out of these experiences. So, with that being said, know that you can find something as a pre-med in a clinical setting where you can make an impact. You don't need an MD or another degree behind your name to do that. And then also piggybacking off the do things that are meaningful to you so that you're able to talk about those down the line.
Something to add is when you're looking for activities or you're looking for guidance, I think having the right mentors can go a long way. And with that said, not everyone who you speak to might be delivering the correct advice or the advice that will resonate most with you or with your story. I would say knocking on different doors, even if some of those are shut in your face, or maybe the advice you hear is discouraging. Take those things with a grain of salt. There will be people, even if it's just one or two, who will mentor you, nurture you, and guide you in the path towards opportunities, towards activities, and just personal, I guess, keeping your spirits up because being pre-med is difficult and the journey to medicine can be long. And for that reason, having someone in your corner is very important. And that's something that I had the fortune to get as a pre-med. It didn't happen until like my third or fourth year, really, when I found someone that I connected with. But the fact that it did happen, it allows me to say today that it's something to look forward to and something to continue to try to find.
Awesome. I will transition to the next question. We kind of have the questions kind of coming in now. For non-traditional applicants, could you share how to access research or how important research may be for someone who's been out of school for 10 years? And yeah, anyone can jump in if you have like any insight or kind of maybe knowledge on like research.
Hi, yeah, sure. I can jump in since I think I'm the one that took more gap years from all of us here. But so the question is, how could you access research? Um, so in my case, I went more like the route of community-based research just because I wasn't really into like basic research or anything like that. So in my case, it was, I guess, it was kind of like a privileged situation that I was back in San Diego and we have UCSD there, which is just like a big research college. So I just like went through UCSD and like looked for jobs on clinical research or community-based research. And I got the opportunity to be like a research coordinator too for this project on health of Latino women. Um, in terms of like how important it is, like I feel like we always like hear mixed answers. Like some people say that it's not really important. Some people say that you absolutely need it. Um, I do know a lot of people that like came to UCSF without any like research experience. And I think as long as you're doing like some other part of your application is strong. Like for example, you don't really like research, but you are very committed to community service in your community. So I would say that as long as you are showing that you're passionate for something else and you're not just like not doing anything, I think that that will still look strong in your community. I think it all depends on like going back to what they were saying earlier, like that you have a theme on your application that and like the way that you do that, I think, is by staying true to like your values and like your mission and you show that through the activities that you choose to do, and it doesn't all have to be related to medicine, and it doesn't all have to be with research or community service, but just ways that, for example, in my case, I knew I wanted to work with underserved communities, so I continued choosing activities even after I graduated from school. Um, Activities that allow me to like serve my community, like serve underserved patients. And I think that showed through my application that I stay committed even through all those like 5 gap years. And so yeah, that's the advice that I will give.
I don't know if no one else wanted to add to that. I think that was a great kind of um, response. But going off of that balance that you mentioned of research versus other community work or other categories of activities, we have a question of when applying, did you equally highlight your clinical research and volunteer work, or did you find that you were stronger in one area? So anybody who wants to speak to this.
Yeah, I can start. I think I tried to ensure that I had a good balance in my activities, and my experiences. And I think that was because I really wanted to aim broadly in my school list. And I think after going through interviews, it was very clear, well, not with every school, but some schools were very much like community service based. UCSF is a big research institution, and research is part of their curriculum. So I think in terms of envisioning where you want to go to school, what your dream schools are. I mean, any med school is a good med school. But thinking about how you want to compile your list and thinking about what the goals and the missions are of that school and what their curriculum looks like, I think it does definitely impact how the school views your application, whether they decide to give you an interview, because some schools care about one or the other. Some schools are very much, a lot of schools are very much a mix. But I think I could kind of sniff out which schools were very community service based as opposed to research based.
Yeah, I think just to go off of that, I also was balanced too in regards to like community service and like doing working as an EMT and doing research. But I feel like a lot of people, especially me, like as a first generation like college student, I don't know what research is. And like there's so many different ways and aspects that you can be involved in research. Um, and me, I was simply doing data collecting and I was like a part of like a clinical research lab that was dealing with pediatrics and more specifically like working with like athletes and like testing their VO2 max. So like that was me, I'm very into fitness, so that was very interesting to me. And I just think that like if you're not interested in research, like you really don't have to do it. And like Gabby was saying, um, it really depends on the schools that you're applying to. Like if you're gonna apply to a research heavy school, then you probably should have a research background. Compared to here at UCSF, we're top in research and primary care, and they value both of those things. So if you are just heavy in primary care, you'll probably do fine. If you're research heavy, you'll probably do fine also.
Great answer. This next question is kind of general to everyone. So could you share what inspired you to pursue med school? Like what drew you into medicine? That kind of, I guess like a short little snippet of that. Robert, it looks like you're kind of like tempted to talk. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I can I can go first. I just love this. I mean, like this question's funny because like you get this like all the time. Like it's giving me flashbacks to my med school interviews. But I think like overall, like why medicine? A short synopsis is like there's no other career that provides like the ability to help and um, help people that really need it, helping them in their most vulnerable times. Um, it is financially stable, which a lot of people don't like to say, but it is true. And it is an important factor, especially if you're coming from these low income areas. Um, but for me specifically, I remember my grandfather was an immigrant from Mexico and he had polio, can only walk on one leg for I mean, his whole life, and he still taught me how to ride a bike, which is interesting now looking back. But um, you know, you look at these disparities of him having a fourth grade level education, wasn't able to get access to the polio vaccine, and you look at those disparities. And when I was going into college, COVID hit also during my first year, and 60 years later, these same types of people, like my grandfather, were most affected during the COVID pandemic. And I feel like during that time, I kind of just felt lost that I wasn't able to help anyone. And that's kind of like when I really got interested in medicine and how you can see these physicians really um, help these communities that are most in need. So that's like a quick little why medicine.
I can share. So for me, I think honestly I wouldn't be here without, I know like you said, like the support of like mentors and also like my family. And going way back, my parents there, like they immigrated from Mexico in the 70s. So my mom, she didn't have me until she was 42. So I have an older brother, he's like 35, and an older sister, she's 27. So growing up, my parents came here for like to give like my siblings and I an opportunity to get an education. My dad, he back in Mexico, they didn't have enough money to get an education out there because you have to like pay to even go to some um, well, there wasn't like a university nearby in my dad's like pueblo, and he was working in my grandpa's field. So then they came to the US to kind of give my siblings and I an opportunity to get in like the higher education that my dad only wished he could have. So from then on, like my parents say like push my siblings and I to do well in school. And like honestly, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be sure if I would like make it to medical school, just because I kind of went to an elementary school that didn't have a lot of resources, and my mom saw that and like she like moved me to a school in like Diamond Bar, and like I would take the bus every day, wake up super early, and when I was like in fifth grade, like everyone was reading Harry Potter and I had never opened a book. So seeing that kind of was intimidating just because, I didn't feel smart enough. But then on, like I was surrounded with like friends who um like like to read books, and I was like, oh my God, like reading for me was the hardest thing in the world. But because my parents pushed me to do that, then, I finally opened my first book in fifth grade. It was like the Nancy Drew mystery books, but that's where it all kind of went forward. And I feel like building a foundation as, early as you can really does like impact you for undergrad and also like applying to even higher postgrad education. So, um, there's a lot of disparities in that area. And so just like my upbringing, like I focused on, I would read to little kids from like underserved backgrounds and go to like preschools, and also I did this like thing called step up tutoring, and so like I got paired with like a fifth grader who I can like teach twice a week as a volunteer. And so just like little things like that kind of reminded me of my younger self. I just like went for but what initially got me inspired to pursue medicine was just, you know my parents are like older in age, and like um I see like I see my family in patients, so I think like wanting to pursue a career where ultimately like I can advocate for my family and their health concerns, and um, be kind of like that person that can care for anyone and everyone. So just that inspired me to do medicine, but just like the lack of confidence didn't come until like my senior year in college. So in college, I was just like, I did research and I was just throwing myself in opportunities that I was scared to do, but just going for it and giving it your all. I ended up like doing an internship and going to like New Jersey and like New York. And so just like throwing yourself into things and not just because like, oh, it's gonna look good on my application. I didn't know I was gonna apply to medical school up until like like senior year. So just like doing things because you really care and giving it your all. And also letters of recommendation do make a big difference in your application, just like from interviewing like applicants and reading applications. Like seeing those letters, I'm like, wow, like these people are amazing. And a lot of people that support you just say like amazing things about you. So just whatever you do, just give it your best effort and you know, the letters of recommendation will come with it. And so that's just like a little bit of backstory. Don't want to take up too much time, so I can also let someone else speak too.
What inspired me was really my mom, similar to Gabby. She is also an immigrant, but the way I grew up was that she was a dedicated nurse during my upbringing, and she was the first in our family to go to college. And to put some background, she hailed from somewhere where it was the townspeople and the city people kind of divided. And the city people were mostly newcomers coming from outside, educated folk, whereas the townspeople didn't really have secondary education. So my mom being the first, it allowed people to see someone that they could trust, since in small towns everyone kind of knows each other. And for that reason, she was able to help people after her work hours, and I would be there while she was helping the townspeople with giving them injections, giving them medicine, or attending to their wounds whenever it was necessary. And this is something that she would do on her free time. She wasn't getting paid for it. And most importantly, from seeing the impact that she was able to have, is how she was able to be a bridge between her community and medicine. And I think that in the way that I grew up, not only witnessing that, but also here in the US, where there's a lot of mistrust oftentimes with underserved communities and medicine and healthcare in general, there is the need to have these bridges between the community and healthcare. And I want to serve just like my mother did for her people back at home in Mexico, to my communities here, and be that bridge that can get people access and also give them the opportunity to work with someone who they feel comfortable with, who they can trust, who speaks the language, and who looks like them.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go all the way around and everyone answer this, or if you want to move on to the next question, but I can go if we want to go all the way around. I don't know,
It's
Kristen or Lucia.
whatever you two prefer. We have a another question that was kind of like, do you think that you had any specific experiences as a pre-med that contributed greatly to your passion for medicine or your interest in that field? So maybe you want to tie it into that one and we can tackle both of those.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about this yesterday, and I don't think that I had particularly an aha moment that made me decide, oh, like medicine is like for me. I think it was like accumulation of events, like a series of events. Um, Growing up for me, I had a very unstable family and had a lot of interaction with the foster care system. But I'm the oldest of four siblings, so I definitely had to kind of take on that role of like being a leader, and being there for my parents more than they could be there for me. So I think just like honestly having a lot of people used to ask me, like, why are you not angry about all of this? And I think that kind of made me, sorry, my cat. Um, I think that kind of made me start to think about how I envisioned my life like growing up and, in adult life. And it made me realize I was very kind of content. Like, obviously, as a little kid, I didn't want to be in this position. But it kind of made me realize that I get a lot of gratitude out of being there for other people and being kind of like that caregiver, the person who people can turn to when they're in a vulnerable situation. So that kind of helped me decide that I wanted to go into healthcare. And then, like, through my clinical experiences, like Robert said, I didn't really know what research was, but had to somehow get involved in these summer internship programs. And that's where I kind of got introduced to research. But even in high school, I really gravitated towards like my science classes and anatomy, like, just blew my mind. Like, I was so fascinated by the human body. So I think it was just kind of like on the academic side, it was like an accumulation of, classes that I took in high school and college, just naturally wanting to get involved, like even during the COVID pandemic and like pop-up volunteer like vaccine clinics. So I just kind of started to notice that that's where I gravitated towards. But then pairing that kind of with the continued role that I even still have today with my siblings and kind of being an interim parent for them, being there for my grandmother who's 92 and helping her navigate all of her complex medical issues. Like, I don't complain about that. And people just constantly ask me, like, why are you not stressed out in this role? But like, I really do enjoy being there for people, being there to see even start to make a smile or start to see someone smile in a time of vulnerability and a time of hardship. And I think that is ultimately what's going to prevent me from burning out ever in this longitudinal journey, because medicine really is a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know everybody says that and it's cliche, but it is very much true. So you need to find like a passion. You need to find something that keeps you going and keeps you motivated, even during a long shift or long hours, or when you're not able to be fully present sometimes when you're so exhausted. But medicine really is gratifying. And I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So that's kind of my short, longish spiel.
All right. Katya, would you like to like add on to any of that coming from like yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So similarly to Gabby, I didn't go into college actually being sure that I wanted to go into medicine. I kind of like I also gravitated to like the science field, but I wasn't sure exactly what I was gonna do with that. Um, and for me, it actually happened through volunteering that I realized, okay, I think this is what I actually want to do. And my first volunteer experience in college was actually going to Tecate, Mexico. We went through this UCLA program, LCCM, and we went to Tecate, Mexico, and we set up like a health fair there for the people in the community. And it just allowed me, like having, I had migrated like 3 years before doing that. So it's just like showed me that I was in a position where I could even go back to my community in Mexico and like offer those type of services that were so like vital for the community there that didn't really have any other form of access. So that was like the first time that it really sparked my, I don't know, just like the idea that maybe I could see myself doing this too, and also seeing how I could have an impact in the community, not only there in Mexico, but also like back in the US, where I could serve as a physician for other immigrants, for other non-English speakers, and really have the opportunity to advocate for them as I wish someone had advocated for us when my family and I first moved in. So yeah, I would say that that was the first time.
And kind of going into, there's a couple questions in the chat asking about like the personal statement process. So uh, the main question being like, how do you, Robert, I know you like mentioned this kind of earlier about creating a theme for your like application and your personal statement. Do you have any, this could be for anyone, do you have any tips on structuring the personal statement and how you kind of create this theme in your application as a whole?
Yeah, I think I can start, but I feel like personal statement's probably like one of the hardest parts of the application, at least for me, just to get everything on paper. I think overall, just like quick advice would just be to just type and start getting it. It's better just to type a lot and then you can cut down to whatever. But me, I'm very into like storytelling. I think like a story really captivates like an audience, and that's kind of like how I started it. Um, and I think like many others in this panelists, like their background and just where they came from, their family, it's a huge part of their story. So I really just talked about my background, the things that I kind of had to get past through in order to get to where I am. I think just like the overall theme of like resilience is like a very common thing that they talk about during med school applications. And I kind of just tailored that along with the story and then just kind of backed it up with some of the activities that I kind of went through and what I learned from it and how I think I would be a great physician. I don't know. I think like the personal statement's like really hard in general. I don't know if anyone else on the panel has more, strict and better advice.
Can I just add one thing? It's not something you could do like in 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours and it's done and it's a process and they could all tell you how long it took to do it and how many rewrite. And so if you think you're going to sit down and do it the day before the application, the day before application opens, then it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, I think, oh, Gabby, go for it. Okay. I think I totally second the it's not possible to write your personal statement within 20 minutes or the day before. Um, I think for me, I was so determined to have something complete at the beginning. So I just initially just went for the draft. And as I mentioned previously, like going on Reddit and going on just online on social media to see how others have approached the personal statement. It is totally amazing if you do have your aha moment, but I think that's what I personally struggled with just trying to ensure that I really communicated why medicine for me, but I couldn't find an aha moment. So, one of my advisors told me to just like take a step back, like delete everything I had written, and just go paragraph by paragraph and really work on one paragraph before proceeding to the next. And by the end of that, I had something I was really proud of, something I had put a lot of time into thinking about every particular sentence that was in there. And I even had time, I started early enough where I had time to return back to these paragraphs and make sure that things flowed really well and really conveyed what I was trying to get the reader to see and see through me. Also, just having as many people as you can look at your personal statement was really, really helpful for me. That in that range of people can be advisors, like teachers, faculty at your institution, your friends know you the best. So just trying to make sure that your best qualities come out of that personal statement as well, because at the end of the day, patients want a healthcare provider who is very knowledgeable, of course, on research and like science and medicine and how to diagnose and treat them, but they also want someone who's going to be very personable with them. It takes a lot of trust to just go into an office and start telling someone you've never met about, what brings you in today. There might be a range of like social drivers that are also contributing to your medical condition and why you're coming to the doctor today. So just trying to make sure that through that personal statement, like you're showing who you really are, the qualities that you'll bring to that, patient provider interaction, but also conveying, your why medicine through that. So just having like a range of people look at it, starting in time, like my personal statement took about 3 months. And that was with looking at it like, pretty much every day, but it's also important to take a break from it. So starting early enough where you can write something, feel solid, take a break from it, come back with a fresh mind, and then continue to go through that revision process. But you will get to something that you're happy with if you start in time.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add, yeah, I super helpful to read other people's personal statements. For example, want to shout out our pre-med application support program. So, a lot of schools have them. As a pre-med, I applied to the UCI's pre-med support or pre-med application. I forgot what it was called at the time, but I got paired with a UCI medical student. Shout out Natalie. She helped me so much with my personal statement. She was like, something not right. try to, add some little spice here, or, kind of like help me make some edits, and best way to kind of just bring out your story in a way that makes people enjoy reading it and bring some emotion. So, I think a typical way pre-med or medical students go about writing the personal statement is like the first paragraph is kind of like the hook and kind of like what got you inspired to medicine, whether it's like a personal experience, family experience, or like, yeah, just like anything to captivate the reader. Because if that first paragraph is boring, you're gonna lose them real quick. So, yeah, I think from there, just like going about the different experiences that really started guiding your path to medicine. But yeah, getting a lot of eyes on it. I think first I was just working with the medical student Natalie, and it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm like pretty happy with this. And so then just like giving it to mentors and like people that like physician mentors that can have like some even more insights. And like when I gave it to my mentor, it was like a week before like the applications, or no, it was like the week of the application open. I'm like, oh my God, hopefully like she doesn't say like to make like scrap it and like start all over. And like it was actually in a place where she's like, wow, this is great. Like you're ready, like submit. And I was like, thank goodness, because I did not want to like make more changes because, take people's advice with a grain of salt. Some people are going to tell you something different. Some people, you're going to like agree and like, oh, you're right. Like that's good advice. So whatever you feel is like true to you, you just go with it. And yeah, just like having people that will take the time to also give you good advice and yeah, apply to our pre-med program. And we're all in part of LMSA if you already didn't know. So
Hey, I wanted to mention something else based on what you were saying, Gabby, that taking people's advice with a grain of salt. Just want to share like something that happened to me, but I was in kind of like one of the like these pre-med like meetings, and I got to talk to these I think he was like a fourth year student, but he was also like in the admissions committee of this university. So he was kind of giving us advice of what he looks for in a personal statement, and he even offered to like read over our personal statements and like give us some feedback. So I was like, this is a great person. Like they know what medicals are looking for. So I sent him my personal statement, and um he sent he sent me like a completely rewritten personal statement with like very fancy words and just things that didn't really sound like me. And at first I was like, I mean, this person knows vets, like they really know what med schools are looking for. So I was like, maybe this is what's correct. And then I also had at that time I was also working with one of my friends who's already in med school and was also helping me like draft my personal statement. And I showed it to her and she was like, no, I don't think this doesn't even sound like you, and like I don't think you should use this. She even said that it kind of seemed like they had to use ChatGPT to like rewrite my personal statement. So um I don't know. So yeah, you should definitely like take people's advice with a grain of salt, because even like if you see like some changes that they made that just don't sound like you, I said that you like should ask someone else or just like reconsider like using that, because I don't know if I would have used it at the end. Because like if from one part you're like really looking up to people who are in that position and you really trust what they have to say, but you also have to stay true to yourself and like true to your voice. And yeah, that essay did not sound like me at all. So I just wanted to mention that in case you guys are in a similar position.
I think that's perfect to get kind of the wide range of advice and like what you should do with that, and how you can apply that to really work on that personal statement. Kind of moving to a different topic, we have a number of questions about UCSF. So if any of you can speak to what drew you there, or someone asked, what's your favorite and least favorite thing? So anything that you can share about your experience there to kind of cover those questions.
Or I guess I can start us off. I think UCSF overall, goodness, what can I say about UCSF? I mean, I truly do love the school. I think there's no other school like it. Just the ability to be at the top of just like primary care and research, and they're always at the forefront of so many different things, whether that be, the HIV/AIDS pandemic to the COVID pandemic. I mean, I thought it was really inspiring, and it was really inspiring, and for me as a physician, I mean, that's what I want to be, during those difficult times, during those pandemics, I want to be at the forefront and help these communities that most need it. And I think just like an overall tip when you're applying to medical school, you want to look at the background of the schools. So obviously like UCSF is really going to care about you helping these communities and putting research out because that's what they constantly do. And they're looking for these physicians that are going to make a difference in the world and they believe in us. And that's kind of why I chose UCSF. Great community overall. I mean, our shout out to our LMSA chapter, Gabby making it super welcoming as a MS1, making a community from the jump. UCSF has a bunch of great programs like UCSF Prime that I was into. Unfortunately, got waitlisted, but there's a couple of people in Prime that they can talk about that. I love those opportunities too. But basically, anything that you want to do, UCSF can get you to those goals, whether that be through a certain specialty or you helping a variety of populations. San Francisco is also pretty cool too. That's a plus, but yeah.
Yeah, I can add. I I know they said like name something negative about UCSF. I can't name one, honestly. I love it here so much. I just started rotations in January, and just like all of the preceptors that I've been paired with have been so amazing. I haven't had any negative experiences. Everyone is so supportive and haven't had the feeling of like being pimped. Like, and it's been really nice just having like an open environment where you can just learn and also start to see patients. And yeah, I guess like the other, like Robert mentioned, the community here has been really amazing through LMSA, but even like through Prime or like just like my classmates overall. It's just like crazy to everyone is like so cool and like I'm like, oh my God, UCSF did a good job. Like, wow, like everyone is so nice and so welcoming and um you just get to know everyone's name and it's like 160 students, but you've had at least one conversation with everyone. So the environment is so welcoming and also like the added mentorship, like you get paired with like a coach through this like something called CMC where you work on like um, a quality improvement project at like a health system. So I was at the General Hospital in San Francisco. So like that built-in support through my coach. He's a pediatrician and had a meeting with him on Thursday just to talk about how rotations are going. Also, like I've never had this experience. A physician, we went on a walk and she's like, Gabby, can I be your mentor? And I'm like, I've that's never happened to me. So just like the support here is like beyond wild. Like people are here and they want to help you. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I could find this anywhere else. And also, we'll say like UCSF does a good job taking care of us as medical students. We're also having fun. I actually went to Tigres and Norte concert last night here at the Chase Center. My friend Jimena, she got us some free tickets. So I was there. There's a lot of ways that you can just balance your life. And like as a like first year, you guys are just went to like the Lake Tahoe trip with all of your classmates. And yeah, I feel like, med school's hard, but when you have like the people around you, your friends, the support system, it makes it so much enjoyable. And like, yeah, I think there was like a 2016 like throwback party yesterday. I didn't go, but if you guys, did you guys go? I don't know, but there's just It's crazy. Like they just send out the invitation to like the whole class group chat. So, and with like dental students and like physical therapy students. So, I mean, on top of the top class education, you have like the top class fun as well.
Gabby, can you explain what pimping is? Because I think most people don't know what that is. And
Yeah, so I guess it's happens everywhere. It probably does happen at UCSF, but basically pimping is where like say you're like in a surgery and like everyone is in there, like all the residents, other medical student or other surgeons, and they're like, what am I pointing to? And they just like put you on the spot with something that you're probably not likely to know. And how are you expected to know that on like day one of like your surgery rotation? So just like, yeah, putting you on the spot. And sometimes I've heard it come off like really mean, but honestly, that's probably pretty rare and not as common at UCSF and, some other institutions where there are probably horror stories on Reddit or Student Doctor Network. I don't know.
I have a question about the UCSF post-bac program. So maybe I think Robert and Gio, you said you did that program. Can you talk a little bit more about like what that looks like how long the program is, like what kinds of things that are offered?
yeah, we had the director, Dr. Lucy Obuobo, yes, last night. So she was here.
Yeah, Gio, you want to take it or me? Yeah, I think, okay, let's see. Overall, like the main mission of like the postbac is just to get, sort of people from underserved backgrounds, whether that be first gen, whatever, into medicine. So I think that's like a important like preface when looking at this program. A lot of people from our backgrounds, you have to work while you're in college. There's a lot of different factors where it makes your, journey difficult to get into medicine. Um, so this postbac kind of really invites the idea of, not having to work. You're kind of just really strictly dialed in on, the MCAT and um, just your grades in general. So it's like, and also I think to preface that too is that there's different types of postbacks. There's ones like career changing, path ones where you have to sort of retake your prereqs. This one's just to build on, you finished your bio degree, but it was a little bit lower on the lower end of GPA. So you start your summer, you move in with some cool classmates that you meet, and you just have a dedicated like 3 months of just MCAT prep. You take the MCAT, boom, you finish that. And then during the school year, you take classes at UC Berkeley Extension full time while you're also doing a quality improvement project. Intertwined with that, you also attend like workshops and classes at UCSF. Just like on just enhancing your application, learning about different communities and ways that you can help underserved populations. I mean, it's just a variety of topics. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else, Gio? I'm trying to think of other stuff.
Yeah, one other thing is that you are paired with a mentor, and that is something very, very helpful. You not only get a student mentor who's a current medical student, but you also get someone who's on the UCSF faculty to mentor you. And my mentor, it was the perfect match. I think we had so much in common, and it was something that I had struggled to find. Someone who shared my background, who shared a lot of commonality with me, and who was in the field. I think that was a perfect match, and I looked up to them through the process. They were someone that I could rely on when things would get difficult. And I think the program overall, like Robert mentioned, there's different programs aligned with different missions. And looking into those, it really, I was drawn to the mission of the program, which is the same mission that UCSF like the same mission of UCSF, and I don't think I would have. Well, I think that was the first time that I felt welcomed and seen in an environment in that way. And for that reason, UCSF was very high on my list, kind of to piggyback on the previous question as well.
Perfect. Someone just briefly, since we're on this topic, asked about financing the post-bac. I don't know if you wanted to briefly address. They said, should I plan to take out loans, or what's the option there?
Yeah, I think yeah, it really depends on like the student. Like it's very similar to med school. I mean, everyone's gonna have different situations, whatever. They did have like a big scholarship thing. Um, so I did get like a certain amount off, but overall, I did have to take loans out, at least me personally. And that's just kind of how it is. Kind of live the same way as it is in medical school. It's like you're just taking out loans, and then that's how, that's what I'm eating with too. That same money that I'm paying rent with is also the same money that I'm using to eat. And I think that just goes into a deeper like topic of just like loans and all of that. But that's just kind of how it is. You kind of make these small sacrifices right now. It does seem like a lot of money up forefront, but in the end, it'll end up paying off.
And that kind of leads right into another topic of like, how did you decide, or how are you deciding that the sacrifices you make along the way to become a physician are worth it for you, whether
Mhm.
that's family,
Yep.
life balance, or financial balance on the road to becoming a doctor?
Yes. Um, Shoot, I was gonna say something in regards to the postbac. I think like because it's a graduate program, there's also certain loans I forgot that are allowed or aren't allowed, but that's like a different topic. But I'll just go quickly, I guess, on like the balance and why I think like going into medicine overall is just like a good idea. I mean, to be more upfront and very like objective, you're going to be making a lot more money than the average person, and you're going to be able to pay off those loans quickly, whether that be 200, 300, 400,000. It may take a few years, but like physicians make a good amount of money where you can pay that off very quickly. Um, so I wouldn't be more worried about the money side. For me, what I was more worried about is just like you were saying, the balance of like family, um, and just having a life overall. And I think like it really depends, and I'm only a medical student, so in residency it's going to be a different story. But number one, I'm very passionate about medicine, and I'm very happy to be in the position that I am, and to, a commitment to serve and help patients. So that just makes my life and happy overall. Also, the medical school is really going to help and determine your happiness. To be honest, UCSF is very great work-life balance. They do it on purpose so you can have the time to, go shadow, to go do all these things. So I think that's a very big factor, the institutions that you're going to, and then also just your priorities in general. If you make a priority to, if you schedule your day around, I want to, visit my family, 1 hour a day or whatever, then you have to kind of make that balance on what you deem is at the top, at the highest priority level for you. So yeah, I think you're always able to balance all of these things.
There's a question in the chat about like the study habits that you have in med school versus in undergraduate studies. Did your study habits in undergrad translate to med school, or did you have to change how you study now?
I can take this question first. I will say they did not translate. I think just the volume of content that you get in medical school is drastically different from the volume that you get in undergrad. Um, I think literally the biochemistry class, like the course that I took over a semester, we've probably covered in like a week or less in med school. So I think at least for it worked very well for me in undergrad to like most of the exams were not cumulative and they didn't really build on each other. And in undergrad, you're taking all of these different courses that sometimes just don't align. Like they're on their own wavelength. Like there's no way you can kind of tie things together. So when it came to like test taking, it was very simple to just start the weekend before and just go through all of my notes. And by the time the exam came on Monday, like I was pretty solid and could do well. That does not work in med school. So I definitely had to kind of take my type B studying and make it a little more type A, where, you cannot start studying for a block exam, or at least I cannot start studying for a block exam like a week before and not be stressed, extremely stressed the day before the exam. So I think it's been like a make sure you're studying along the way in the block so that you don't get behind. I'm sure many of you have also heard that it's not a popular opinion to go to lectures in med school. A lot of us watch lectures remotely. So you just have a lot more, I would say, flexibility in how you study, how you choose to study, how you choose to attend lectures. Like there is no, absence for lectures, at least in undergrad. For me, if I wasn't there like for a couple days in a row, like my professor would reach out and ask, all right, is everything okay? Like what's going on? No one in med school, at least at UCSF, if you don't come to lectures on Monday that aren't required, they're not going to assume you're not doing your work. So there's just a lot more flexibility in how you can study. And to answer the question about the study habits, I think I study a lot more consistently now because I personally prefer to not be extremely stressed prior to a block exam. So just being a little bit more consistent and being okay with not 110% grasping every small little detail. That will not get you far, and it will raise your anxiety and your cortisol levels through the roof. Medicine is just constantly evolving. There's so much that you can learn, and with each block, there's so much content. So with just really learning how to prioritize what's really important, what's going to be important when you get to your board exams, and interacting with patients and diagnosing and treating patients will be like key. That's been key for me.
And to kind of continue with that, another question kind of is similar to what does like an average day look like for like a med student, especially like in the first year, for example, or in the third year? What does that like day look like for you? Um, yeah, we could just go with that.
Yeah, I can also go. I think your day changes along the way. Like your weeks, I really love that UCSF kind of makes it so that our weeks are not exactly the same, at least for the most part. Gabby had mentioned we have this thing called CMC where you work at a health system and work on a quality improvement project. So once a week on a different day, we all go to, learn clinical skills and work on this quality improvement project. But then in terms of lectures, like they usually front load our lectures at the beginning of the week, but just because they hold them in person on like a Monday, you do not necessarily have to watch them and attend these lectures. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in how you go about planning your schedule and how you go about making sure that you're learning content, which I truly appreciate because if I have a doctor's appointment at 2 p.m. on a Monday, I can go to that and know that there are pre-recorded lectures for me to watch at a later time, as opposed to like being at a 9 to 5 job where you have to kind of be at your job and it's you have to apply or request time off to go do things. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you schedule your week, and others can chime in with how they approach the week as well. But lots of flexibility.
Yeah, I think one thing to add is just like since we're talking about just like a week in the life of just like a medical student, is just to really ask these programs on like their curriculum. For me, I mean, for here at UCSF, like we're lecture and like problem based like group learning. Some are like strictly group learning, some are fully lectured. So as far as like our schedule, Mondays and Fridays are usually like at least for MS1 year, preclinical year, it's going to be more lecture heavy. That's like usually 8 to 5 on Mondays, and Fridays it can be 8 to 3, whatever. And then you have that CMC day. That's where you do your clinical skills and your quality improvement project. That's like again 8 to 5. That's usually it's either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and then the other 2 days are usually like small groups. And that's like case-based learning. You're going through a case with your small group, and there may be a couple lectures in between, but you're kind of done pretty early, usually around like 12, sometimes 2. And yeah, all these days you kind of have time to study after. And it's really flexible, like Gabby was saying, because you don't have to go in person. At least like maybe 3 days out of the week you probably do.
Yeah, I can add day in a life as a rotation student. I'm actually six like one of the 16 students in the Pisces program, which is a longitudinal program at UCSF for rotations. Most majority of my classmates are doing the traditional track, which is like 2 months of surgery, 2 months. Wait, sorry, I think my Wi-Fi is lagging. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's a traditional track, but I can tell you a little bit about Pisces. So, every day is a different half clinic. So, for example, in the morning, I'm like in neurology, and then the afternoon, I'm in like internal medicine. It's mostly outpatient. So, I'm seeing patients by appointment, and I do really like the outpatient setting. I am most interested in family medicine right now. So, it's really fulfilling seeing patients kind of longitudinally. So, with that, like I get paired with a doctor in every specialty. So, on top of that, I'm getting like these long-term relationships with doctors and also long-term relationships with patients that I get to follow along with for the year. So I really am liking it so far. I'm actually starting my inpatient surgery block on Monday, so wish me luck. I might not be getting as much sleep, so but yeah, I guess like with UCSF, I did also want to add that the opportunities here are endless and there's just so much um like they send out a spreadsheet on in like December of your first year, and it's like you can speed date with it's kind of like speed dating where you get to talk to different faculty members that are doing research. And so yeah, it's just like all these opportunities that you kind of just get thrown at all the time. Like our Slack is like constantly being bombarded with opportunities. So um, yeah, it's really great.
From there, we can kind of jump back a little bit to like the process. We have multiple questions about secondaries. What are common themes that you think people should be prepared for? I know there's a lot of material online, but is there any specific, people ask, like, should it be kind of descriptive in the same way that you're storytelling? Should you emphasize? We also have a question about whether leadership is something to be emphasized in your application.
Um, yeah, I think secondaries for it's pretty broad. I don't know about because I feel like advice for secondaries is a lot more specific. For me personally, I was more on like the descriptive side of things. I think like the word count is just like so low for you to like kind of tell a story. It was hard, at least for me, as far as like my writing skills. So, and I try to like show more than just like tell. That's like a very common thing in the application. Like you don't want to just keep rambling on like things. Oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. You know, you want to say like skills you learn from it, how you can be, how you think like you can bring that into whether you know your medical school class as a future physician, just things that like you how you grew from it. Um, and then I think there's another question that you kind of asked at the end, but I completely forgot in regards to, but
No worries. I know. It was about leadership and
oh yes, yes, leadership. For me personally, I think leadership is like a big thing. I think in general for medical school it is just because you are going to be a physician and like physicians are seen as like I guess like you know the top of the team. You know, if you're in a team, the physician's always like the leader, I guess you can say. Um, so I did emphasize leadership a lot. Yeah, that was like starting clubs, doing different things like that. But
Yeah, also to add to that for secondaries, I think a common question that many schools ask, not all, but many schools do ask is why that school? And one of the biggest pieces of advice I got for why that school was to kind of peruse through each school's website and look for clubs or like just things that I'd want to get involved in at that school. So I really tried to focus on trying to get the reviewer or the reader to kind of envision what I would add to and contribute and do as a student at the school. Of course, I haven't attended the school, but by doing that, I think that was pretty effective for me. Um, Also, for secondaries, I think they come at you so fast, and it can be really difficult to keep up with the pace of writing them. And then just to preface, like you submit your primary application, that's where your personal statement goes, and all of your experiences. You submit that through the AMCAS portal, and then maybe a month or so later, the timeline can kind of vary, but you start to get secondary invitations where you have kind of all of these little small supplemental essays, and that's where all of these smaller questions come in with the smaller word counts. Um, and the second piece of advice that I got for secondaries was to always have my personal statement up and my most meaningful experiences up to ensure that I'm not just repeating information. Sometimes like that was inevitable, but try to use my secondaries as a space to kind of add and like beef up my application with things that maybe happened after I submitted my primary application. So use that as a chance to like update the schools on new things, things that you didn't have a chance to incorporate in your primary application because of word counts. And yeah, I think those were the general pearls of knowledge that I kept in mind as I went through the secondary application process.
That's great. Um, Another question that we have is, um, did you, for the activities section, I think Robert actually answered this, so like how short it is, like how most of it is more mainly description instead of like fully story. But how did you end up choosing like your most meaningful activities in your application?
For me, I think it was the experiences that I had that had the most impact on me, but also the experiences that were most longitudinal. It's not possible, well, at least for me, I did not do 15 different things all for the same duration of time. So the things that were kind of most impactful, the things I got the most out of, because in these descriptions, yes, you want to describe like what your role was and what that position looked like, and just what your responsibilities and what that experience like entailed for you, but you also want to make sure that you're ending with what you got from that and how that impacted you, because I think they also want to see like how that contributed to you deciding on medicine as well. So yeah, I think the things that I was most involved in for the longest ended up being my three most impactful experiences. Quality over quantity, definitely.
And to kind of follow up on that, like on all those like three activities, did you also include that in your personal statement? Like you kind of included more stories from those experiences, or did you kind of draw from like different areas of of your activities list to include into your personal statement?
I can answer that. So in my case, I ended up using my three most meaningful activities, like as the ones that I had in my personal statement too, just because I also like had to reflect a lot on which activities I wanted to include on the personal statement in the first place. And um, to your question, I think I also in the personal statement, I felt kind of limited on like the space that you have, and there was so much more that you want to like say about those experiences, since those, at least in my case, were the ones that like um I don't know, led me to choose medicine. So I use the most meaningful activities section to kind of like say more about those activities and why they were so meaningful to me. And I did decide to do like different examples and different stories about each specific activity. I didn't repeat like the same as the personal statement, but I think like the overall theme and what I got from that experience was like the same thing, obviously, that I had like kind of like mentioned in the personal statement. But I know that not everyone does that. But yeah, in my case, it just made the most sense to use those experiences from the personal statement as my most meaningful too.
Yeah, I agree with what Katia said. Basically, spot on. I think it was very similar to me. It was integrated in my personal statement. I think like another thing too, like don't be worried about you'll see common themes and just like common activities that are constantly brought up in the application process, whether that be through interviews, secondaries, and like that's completely normal if like you repeat yourself to a certain extent. But I think like the way you frame things is also another way. Like Katia was saying, if you're talking about in your personal statement, but now in your secondaries or in your whatever, maybe you bring it up of maybe a different skill that you learned or a different story that you can tell. And that's kind of a good way to sort of balance things out.
One other thing I wanted to add was this may not be the case for everyone, and sometimes it's just not even possible, but I tried to have kind of a variety of letters of recommendations from different people. So I had for each of my three most meaningful experiences, I had a letter from each of those experiences. And I think that definitely, like, I had a comment about that and it was well perceived.
Yeah. Okay, great advice. I know we are coming up on time. We're almost at 11:30, but we'll keep going until then. So um, we have a general question that if you could give your pre-med self some advice, what would it be? So not everybody has to answer, but if you have something that comes to mind, go ahead.
I would tell myself to um, just stay the path. I think there were a lot of points of hesitation and getting mixed advice on whether I was good enough to be in medicine. I'm here today, and thinking back at all those times I thought of giving up, I think I should be kinder to myself also. Those two things, stay the path, be kind to yourself. The path is long, the path is stressful, and somebody had a question earlier about imposter syndrome. That is unfortunately something that followed me as a pre-med. It's still around today as a med student and will probably continue on as I continue in the path. But um, just those two things, stay the path and be kind to yourself.
Yeah, similar advice. I mean, I would give myself grace and just I would tell myself to be more confident and believe in myself, Because at the end of the day, like I felt like I would get advice from different people and they would turn me away from medicine um and I'm lucky to be here and it was because of myself and it was the hard work that I did that got me here. And any of you guys that are currently watching this can be in the position that we are, as long as you put in the effort. And there's nothing stopping you besides like you. And it's like a very, thing cliche, but it's like this is a difficult path, but like if you really want to be a doctor, anyone can achieve it. Obviously there's barriers and all this, but if you're just very adamant and you try your hardest, meet good mentors, go to panels like this, just become educated, there's nothing stopping you. And yeah.
Yeah, I would say honestly all of that's been said. And add just I wish I would have told myself to like feel more confident. The imposter syndrome was very, very present for me as a pre-med. Um, and I think waiting to hear back after submitting, like the application process itself is so long and that was so dreadful. But just giving myself grace, knowing that medicine will always be there, and not letting like that year-long wait really just take over my thoughts every day and staying off, oh my gosh, SDN and Reddit. Like people say whatever on there. It's not always true. So it can be very easy to get like sucked into everything that's going on in those chats. But yeah, give yourself grace. Try to be patient. And just have confidence. Like I still have my little whiteboard note to myself where it's like, you will get into med school. And now I look at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like a year ago, I did not believe that. And that's crazy because, anyone can get into med school recognizing there are barriers, like Robert said, but just have faith in yourself, believe in yourself. You are capable. And if you really want to go into medicine, like you will get there eventually.
Thank you all for those tips. And a question that we have next is on
The
scholarship.
only thing that I would just
Or
add, you
sorry, yeah, go
guys,
ahead, sorry.
is social media, Reddit, all of these things that I call them keyboard warriors, is that, anybody could go there and punch anything, but, take everything with a grain of salt and people post there online like they don't know what the heck they're doing. If you go back and watch, actually, we had a dean of admission from UCSD who actually a couple weeks before he spoke, he posted a couple questions on Reddit and then people answered it and then he brought it back and said these are all like wrong. So if you want to go back and look at it. So people just post, pardon my French, shit post and they don't know what they're talking about. So for your mental health, don't do it, but I can't force anyone to do anything. So
Did any of you apply for like scholarships for like UCSF or like were there any like full ride pre-med scholarships or anything in undergrad maybe that you applied for or in your gap years that you applied for before going to med school?
Yeah, I did the reason why I shipped myself off to Minnesota coming from California was because I applied to college through the QuestBridge National College Match program, which I'm not sure what percentage of applicants they give full rides to, but they cover everything up to your fares going to the college, tuition, fees, like room and board. Like I didn't have to pay a single dime. And yes, they require you to start pretty early with applying to college, and you will know prior to even when the UC applications open. So it does require some work on your end. And it is a risk because if you are applying to these colleges, it's important to think of where you envision yourself and whether you'll be happy in the colleges that they partner with. But at the end of the day, I took a risk. And once they told me I was matched, I had to go. I had no choice. So that's the risk that you take. But I was very, very content with my decision. And coming from a low income family, I mentioned my family had a lot of interaction with the foster care system. So I really didn't really have much support. And entering the college route, and honestly, not even parental support to even go off to college. So that really gave me some direction. And I feel like without that QuestBridge college match program, that I wouldn't be where I am today. So very thankful. And if anyone is in the high school stage and is deciding to apply to college, definitely would recommend looking into the QuestBridge program.
Yeah, and I think going specifically for medical school, most people they simply just like apply to medical school, and your funding and scholarships are coming from these institutions. There's also different pathway programs like Prime. They offer, certain scholarship opportunities. And a lot of these schools have these different programs, or it's based off of merit, certain different things, community service, whether that be. There's also private, scholarships that you can apply, through also. Um, and then also like a new thing now is since there's like a lot of new medical schools that are constantly coming up, they simply like if you get accepted, you get a full ride. You can look into those. There's a variety of different options. But yeah, that's kind of like a really base level of paying for med school.
think I could just add this is for if you're from low income family that basically the idea of taking out $300,000 out to pay for your education, it's very daunting. But also just think about it. If you go buy a house in California, you're at least buying $600,000. And if you are not in medicine, which you start at around $250,000, average job is about $120,000. You're getting you're investing in your future in something that you make starting out $250,000 in, and it goes up 10% almost every year. And so it's an investment, just like anything else. And I know the thought of it is very daunting, but you'll always have a job. Unemployment rate for physicians is so low they don't even keep the track. And also, when you're done with your residency, when you're going for your first job, I have a friend who got $150,000 just to move to Fresno. No, sorry, outside of Fresno for 3 years, and so it's so there's a lot of things you could do. There's national service. There's a host of other things you could do. So I would say 90. Going to medicine, you have to look over 99 issues, but paying them shouldn't be one. So stealing that from Jay-Z. But making those decisions, if you want to do this for the rest of your life, you got to study, you got to keep up, you got to take tests. So there's all those other things that you have to decide, but money shouldn't be one of them. It's delayed gratification, and also for us that live in the Bay Area, going into medicine is not gonna let you live like a tech billionaire, but most people don't live that way. So just throw that out there.
I know we're here at time. I want to be acknowledge all of everybody's time who's here, especially our panelists. But there's a ton of links in the chat that Jubin has been posting that correspond to questions everyone was asking. There's some information as well from our panelists. So please look at that before you sign off of the Zoom. There's more resources on our website as well. If you want to look at our past panels or other speakers. Kirsten, I don't know if you wanted to wrap everything up.
You pretty much covered everything, Lucia. Took the words out of my mouth. Thanks so much, everyone. Jubin, if there's nothing else you'd like to add, I'm sure we can let our panelists go off and enjoy the rest of their Saturday.
Can somebody give me the winning lotto numbers for today?
Thank you so much to
Thank you again.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. I know all the attendees are really grateful as well.
No, yeah, thank you for having us. If you guys, any of the people that are watching, if you guys have any questions, make sure to apply to UCSF #1. But also, you can always just hit me up through email, whatever. You can find anyone in academia, just look them up, Robert.Quiros at UCSF, you know? But yeah, always open to chat and help people out.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great Saturday afternoon. Saturday, it's noon. So, all right. Thank you.